You have never waited for anything in your life. Not once. When you were hungry, food appeared. When you were cold, servants moved. When you wanted a woman, she was brought to you. When you wanted a war, armies assembled. When you wanted to be remembered forever, you built temples so large that the stones alone weigh more than entire cities. You are Ramses II, Pharaoh of Egypt, King of Kings, the great ancestor, the one whose name will be carved into stone for 3,000 years. You have 200 wives, 100 children, an empire that stretches from what will one day be called Sudan to the borders of what will one day be called Syria. And right now, sitting in the most powerful throne in the ancient world, surrounded by gold and incense and absolute silence, you are trying to remember the last time you felt something real. Stay with me, because the story of the most powerful man who ever lived is not the story you were taught. It is the story of what absolute power actually costs and who pays for it. You were not born a king. You were born a god. That is the first thing you need to understand. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was not simply a ruler. He was the living embodiment of Horus, the falcon god, son of Osiris. He was the bridge between the human world and the divine. When he spoke, it was the voice of the gods. When he acted, it was the will of heaven. This was not metaphor. This was literal, absolute, unquestioned belief. From the moment of your birth, every person who looked at you saw something more than human. Your father, Seti I, began your training before you could walk properly. By the age of 10, you were present at military campaigns. By 14, you held the title of commander. By 24, you sat on the throne of Egypt. The weight of that throne is something no one can prepare you for. Because here is what being a god actually means on a Tuesday morning in 1274 BC.
It means you cannot show weakness, ever. Not in front of your generals, not in front of your wives, not in front of your children, not in front of your enemies, not even in front of yourself. A god does not doubt. A god does not grieve. A god does not fear. So when you doubt, and you do, you perform certainty. When you grieve, and you will, you perform strength. When you fear, and every human being fears, you perform divinity. You have been performing since you were 14 years old. By the time you reach 30, the performance has become so complete that you can no longer find where it ends and where you begin. That is the first price of absolute power. You lose yourself inside it. The year is 1274 BC. You are leading an army of 20,000 men toward the city of Kadesh in what is now Syria. Your enemy is the Hittite Empire, the only power on earth large enough to challenge Egypt.
1,000 years later. My love is unique. No one can rival her. Just by passing, she has stolen away my heart. You loved her, that much is clear from the historical record. She died before you, and you had 67 more years to live. After Nefertari, you married your own daughters. This was not scandal in ancient Egypt, it was theology. The pharaoh was divine. His bloodline had to remain divine. The politics of marriage, the alliances, the treaties sealed with a princess sent from a foreign court, these were not romance. They were diplomacy conducted through human beings. The women in your harem had every physical comfort imaginable. Food, clothing, music, education for their children. They had everything, except the one thing that no amount of power could give them: choice.
And you, surrounded by 200 women, attended by thousands of servants, worshipped by millions, were perhaps the loneliest man in the ancient world. Because no one in your life could tell you the truth. Not your wives, they depended on your favor. Not your generals, they depended on your approval. Not your priests, they depended on your divinity. Every person around you told you what you wanted to hear, for 66 years on the throne. If you are watching this and thinking about what it actually means to have everything, drop a comment. I want to know if you think power like this is a gift or a prison. 100 children. That is the documented number. Some historians say more, up to 160 by certain counts.
The exact figure has been debated for decades. What is not debated is this: you outlived most of them. Ramesses II ruled Egypt for 66 years.
He lived to approximately 90 years old, an almost impossible age for the ancient world, where life expectancy for ordinary people was perhaps 35 to 40 years. He was so old that by the end of his reign, 12 of his sons had already died before him and had been prepared to inherit the throne. 12 sons gone. In ancient Egypt, the death of a child was not unusual. It was expected, ordinary. The grief was real, but the context was different. You understood from birth that death was constant and close. But 12 sons, princes who had been prepared for rule, who had sat at your feet in the throne room, who had ridden beside you in chariots, who had been given titles and armies and responsibilities, gone before you, and you continued. Because a god does not stop. A god does not retire. A god does not hand the throne to someone else and go quietly into the desert to live out his remaining years in peace. A god rules until the moment of death. So you ruled.
With arthritis so severe,